Good morning, everyone. I'm Kumar. Today, I will be presenting my individual assignment for the Global Economics course at King's University College, focusing on one of the most dynamic members of the BRICS group, namely India. I will be exploring the country's economic challenges, its comparative advantages, and the prospect it holds for the future as a global economic powerhouse. Let me start with the BRICS definition here. BRICS is a powerful economic alliance that brings together nations like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It was established in year 2006 as a platform for these countries to cooperate and strengthen their influence on the global stage. Together, BRICS countries contribute to more than 25% of global GDP, and they constitute about 40% of the world's population. And we're all aware that most of this population is contributed by China and India alone. Their main goal is to promote economic growth, trade, and investment while reducing reliance on Western economics. India is a key member of BRICS, playing a significant role in global trade and economic policies. Today, we will look a closer picture of India's economy, its challenges, and future outlook that it holds. First, let's begin by understanding India's geography and demographic. Let's start. India is a vast and diverse country. It is the seventh largest country in the world by land and has the largest population, overtaking China with about 1.4 billion people as of 2022. India's geography is extremely varied. In the north, we have the towering Himalayan mountain, which provides natural borders and influence the climate. While in the west, there's the Thar Desert. Completely contrast, it is one of the driest regions in the world. In the south and east, we have long coastal plains which support trade, fishing, and agriculture for the people in India. This diversity in landscape plays a key role in India and influencing its agriculture, industry, and trade patterns. Now, let me focus on economic part. India is one of the fastest growing economics in the world. And looking at the figures in the screen, as of 2023, it has a GDP of 3.57 trillion USD, making it as the fifth largest economy globally. India follows a mixed economic model where both private business and government policies contribute to the growth of the economy. The major sectors of India are three actually. There's three major sectors. The first one would be agriculture, which contributes about 15% to the GDP. The second would be industry, making up about 30% of GDP, with main sectors of steel and automobiles. And the biggest, the third largest of all, is the services sector, which contributes about 55% of the GDP, with IT, banking, and finance are the key drivers. India is also active participant in international economic organizations such as the G20, WTO, and the United Nations. And with an annual growth rate of about 8.2%, India is actually on the right track to become one of the world's top three economics in the next decade. So that will be around 2035. However, despite all this impressive growth that I've highlighted, India faces several challenges. So now, for the slides after this, I'll be focusing on the challenges currently being faced by India. Every growing economic faces challenges, not only India alone here. So some of the key economic challenges faced by India are unemployment and poverty. So let me start in explaining what is actually the issue in India. Now, imagine a classroom where 23 out of 100 graduates cannot find jobs. Yes, this is India's youth unemployment issue in reality. While India's economy is expanding, millions of people are struggling to find stable jobs, and most of them are currently employed in the informal sector. Look at the screen. I've highlighted the youth unemployment is about 23% in year 2023, Meanwhile, 90% of the workforce are working in the informal sectors. Meanwhile, in rural areas, they have limited employment opportunities. So this is the major issue in India. Next would be the income inequality. Top 10% of the population in India holds almost 77% of the wealth, and 10% of the population still lives below the poverty line. So this highlights that the gap between the rich and the poor is widening, with significant portion of wealth concentrated among a small elite group. Next would be the infrastructure gaps. Road, railways, and power supplies needs improvement to support India's industrial growth. Trade deficit. India is highly dependent on crude oil that is imports from its neighboring countries. As a statistics, I can share with you, India imports about 80% of its crude oil, making it vulnerable to global price changes. As we all know, crude price is actually heavily dependent on the world price and US currencies. So if the price changes, India will have a significant trade deficit. Okay, and the final challenges I would like to highlight is actually on the bureaucracy and corruption in India. It's not a surprise that India ranks 96 out of 180 in Transparency Corruption Perception Index. This is very common in most of the Tamil movies. Yeah, you can see Rajinikanth and Vijay always raise this issue. So this is one of the issues that India need to undertake to overcome in near future. Next, there are many red tapes in India. If you look at the ease of doing business ranking, India currently plays at 63rd. So this is one of the challenges that India might have to have a look to improve its economic condition and provide better opportunities for businesses to thrive in their economy. Okay. So for the next slide, I will be focusing on the India and comparative advantage theory. Comparative advantage is when a person or a country can produce a good or service at a lower opportunity cost than others. Well, India is a global leader in several industries, giving it a strong competitive edge in the world market. So some of the key sectors that India have competitive advantage would be information technology and software services. This is highly attributed due to highly skilled workforce in software development, artificial intelligence, and data analytics that are currently residing in India. India is known as one of the most prominent world's IT hub, with companies like TCS, Infosys, and Wipro providing services to global IT firms like Microsoft and Google. And statistically, the IT sector generates over 250 billion USD in revenue annually. The next sector that India has comparative advantage would be the pharmaceutical sector. India is the largest producer of generic medicines, supplying almost 20% of the world's generic drugs. This is highly attributed due to low cost of production for medicines due to cheaper raw materials and labors. Indian companies like Sun Pharmaceuticals play a major role in global healthcare, where they export their products to over 100 100 countries all over the world. The next sector that India has advantage is on the textile and apparel. The textile industry is heavily labor intensive, and with vast number of labor available in India, this is not an issue for them to grow in this industry. And India is a leading exporter of cotton, silk, and garments. Next, India is the largest producer of spices and rice, with its agriculture exports worth about 15.2 billion annually. Agriculture remains a major employer in India, especially in the rural area, and it provides livelihoods for about 43% of India's workforce. Okay. Next, I would like to highlight on India's dependency on imports. While India has a strong competitive advantage in exports, it still relies heavily on imports for energy, electronics, and industrial raw materials. I will highlight some of the import dependence items here. Firstly, India imports 210 10 billion worth of crude oil every year. So this indicates India highly dependent on oil and energy products from overseas countries. Next would be electronics and semiconductors. The country spends about 70 billion importing mobile phones and semiconductor chips. India is one of the largest gold consumers. They import 45 billion worth of gold annually, and this is highly associated with cultural demand. Okay. The next import dependence would be defense equipment. India imports weapons, aircraft, and submarines, spending about 15 billion on defense imports. Okay. To reduce this dependence, India is focusing on policies that promote local manufacturing and self-reliance. So for the next slide, I'll be touching on this. To strengthen India's economy, they have introduced several trade policies. So let me start with the first one. Free Trade Agreements or FTA. India has signed key FTAs with UAE, Australia, and currently negotiating with the UK and EU to boost exports and secure some critical imports. And with this, they managed to have higher exports and cheaper imports from Australia at the lower tariffs. The next trade policy that is beneficial for India's economy would be the Atmanirbhar Bharat, or commonly known as Self-Reliant India and Make in India. So this policies aims to boost local manufacturing and reduce import dependence in electronics, defense, and semiconductor products. And through this initiative, we can see more local production of Apple, Samsung phones in India. And there has been less reliance on foreign defense imports, which we can see in the figures highlighted in the screen, about 11% reduction. The next policy undertaken by India is actually on production linked incentives, PLI scheme. This scheme provides financial incentives to industries such as the electronics, auto, pharma, and textiles to boost local productions and export. So through this initiative, India is becoming a major mobile manufacturing hub, and more foreign investment is coming in. For example, Tata have built India's first semiconductor plant with this foreign investment that's coming in. The next would be import tariff adjustments and trade restrictions. So India imposes higher taxes on non-essential imports and lowering the taxes on key raw materials to support local industries. And with this, they have a stronger domestic industries which help local industries like local steel and electronic production to grow even further. And they also facing some sort of trade dispute. For example, US raising tariffs on Indian goods due to these tariff adjustments. We can see this recently being announced by Donald Trump as well, yeah? And it affects countries like Malaysia too. The next would be export promotion and logistics modernization. So India is focusing on better infrastructure, ports, railways, digital trade systems to make exports faster and cheaper. And we can see from this initiative, India managed to record 776 billion total exports in the year of 2023, while lowering trade costs and having a faster shipping times. Now, I'll be sharing on the India's sustainability outlook for the next 5 years. Let me start with positive outlook first. With strong government support, young talent, and a focus on self-reliance, India can reduce its import and lead in new emerging technologies, pharma, and renewable energy. One of the target by India is actually to achieve a renewable energy target of 500 gigawatt by year 2030. And India's GDP is projected to grow at a pace of 6.5% annually for the year 2024 up to 2028. And this will be making India to be the third largest economy by the year of 2027. Next, let me share on some of the risks that India might have for the next 5 years. So the first would be the geopolitical tensions, such as the border issues with China, and international conflicts of Russia-Ukraine war, for instance. So this might impact commodity prices, for example, the crude oil prices. So this is one of the risks that India have to look into. Next would be the climate change. India is heavily dependent on monsoon and heat waves threatens agriculture in India. So this is one of the risks that India is currently facing as well. Next is high debt levels. If you look at India's government debt, it is about 84% of India's GDP, which is actually quite high. India must handle all these issues smartly to keep moving forward. Now, let me share my personal opinion on India's future. Bear with me, yeah? I believe that India has the potential to be one of the top economy in the world. With strong government support, young talents, which is in economic terms known as demographic dividend, yeah, and a focus on self-reliance, India can reduce its imports and lead in new areas, as I mentioned earlier, like technology, pharmaceutical, and renewable energy. If these steps continue, India could become the third largest economy in the world by the year 2027 with a strong and stable trade system. With the right strategies and global partnerships, India is well on its way to become an economic powerhouse. Well, I have come to the end of my presentation. I hope you have a clearer picture of India's economy, its strengths, its challenges, and its bright outlook for the next 5 years. Thank you very much for listening. Have a nice day.